Okay, well, let's get going. I really would love to answer your questions, and I can't wait to hear what you want to ask.
Thank you. Yes. So first of all, I am a non-traditional applicant in the sense that I actually have a background in entrepreneurship in my social work, which is public health. But I never thought of considering a PhD before what I learned lately, which is what I'll tell you, and that is I've been doing a structured approach to my work, which is doing interviews, understand where the pain points are and what's missing to be able to be an entrepreneur and serve there. And it's been 4 years now, 3 to 4 years. And so I just realized I've been reading and I watched your videos and I've been reading about what PhDs are about. I never considered a PhD, but I'm like, it hit me that this is maybe what you do in a PhD, like doing interviews and constructing your data and looking at your data from different, like, I don't know, like with different tools. And so my first question is like, am I wrong in this assumption? Like, is this what you do in a PhD? Like, is it the interviews and then you have data to find out like the same questions of like, is this what where the gaps are in the system? Is this like the Delphi interviews? And I've been working with academics as well. So it just hit me recently. I'm like, maybe I should do this under like a structured more framework under a program. And so is my question clear? Like, am I correct in
Yeah.
that assumption?
So yeah, you absolutely are correct. What you're doing is essentially qualitative research.
Yes.
That's a lot of the research I do too, which is collecting data from people, which, sometimes you think of that as like numbers or health information or whatever, but it can also be through interviews and stories and narratives. And then you analyze and you code that data by reading it, or not reading it, like, line by line coding it, then assigning themes, interpreting findings, like triangulating like that's all under the world of research. And in fact, that's what I a lot of like, academic researchers do. That's what a lot of consulting companies do when they conduct research. So all of that falls under, yes. This is what people with PhDs do. I hope that answers
Okay.
your
So
question.
yeah, no, it did. And please excuse my ignorance, but why does that take you 6 years or 5 years in a program?
Uh,
What do
yeah,
you
I
do?
mean, that's a great question. I think part of it is like building the skills and really learning in depth and not just going and, let's say you want to do a qualitative, like you want to be a qualitative researcher. Any At least in my understanding, most PhD programs are still going to make you like take a lot of quantitative and stats classes just so you understand that. And then they'll also have you take a lot of deeper methods courses, theory courses. So you spend a few years building up that coursework, the skills, and then you spend a couple years coming up with your own project and carrying that project out, which is your dissertation. So, yes, it doesn't take 6 years to like learn how to do like qualitative interviews and write up papers and do the research, but it does take sort of that many years to go through that really rigorous training of learning how to do things, learning how to do it well, learning how to collaborate with others, etc., and then produce your beautiful dissertation at the end of it all.
Like, how did you know what skills to prepare yourselves with? Do you have a question of like a gap between your skills and what is needed? And how did you gear yourselves, like figure out first of all what kind of skills you needed, and then how did you close that gap?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. And I mean, to be honest, I feel like I didn't really know exactly what I needed or what exactly a PhD level researcher does.
Mhm.
I came in with my MPH background, and I knew I took both qualitative and quantitative courses. The qualitative ones were much more sort of like I understood those, and those made more sense to me right away. Whereas on the quantitative side, I think I barely passed that course. It was very difficult for me. I like didn't really, we were learning how to use SAS, and I was like, it took me so long to like just do a problem set, and I was so confused. Like I just had no skills there. And so I guess in a way, when I like got to my PhD program, I was like, well, I don't need to take more qualitative courses. I already got very rigorous training in my master's, and that was really kind of more intuitive for me. Whereas like I really need the quantitative training, and that was like the one thing that my program at Harvard, they really emphasize is the quantitative aspect of everything. And that, yes, you need the theory, you need the qualitative, but you're also going to build on the quantitative theory and the quantitative skills and analytics. And that was not just a draw for me, but a lot of the people in my cohort, they wanted to get that statistical training because that is a really important skill set. Unless you only do qualitative research, it's really great to have sort of that epidemiological, statistical background and knowledge so that when you're reading research papers, you can kind of like, get it like pretty quickly and like know what they're talking about. Um,
Right.
so I did get that training when I got my PhD, and I always tell this story so many times. I went from not even being able to like download R on my computer basically to like now I'm like training a mentee right now on how to use R. So you can go a really long way in just a few years.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. But then what I'm hearing from you is you didn't start, well, I mean, I'm sure of course you did your MPH, but then there wasn't more of like building up your skills before, other than what you're doing in your MPH. Like you weren't thinking of like, what do I do extra more than my background to match the skills that I needed in the program?
Oh, I see. So you're sorry if I misinterpreted your question. So you were asking like what extra I did to like prepare before starting my PhD. So
Yeah.
kind of some summer homework for quantitative work, but and I did it and it was challenging and they made a big deal out of it and I was like, "Oh my," and it was like stressing me out. I was like, "How do I pass all of these stats quizzes?" And I was like working full time and like going home and like doing this at like 8 p.m. at night and I was really stressing myself out. And then I don't even remember what any of that was. Like, I think in a way it was helpful. It got me like thinking, okay, I need to take this really seriously and gave me a little bit of exposure and background before starting. But yeah, I would say there's really no prep you need to do before getting there. Besides just continuing to do what you're doing. Like, don't do anything extra. Don't go out of your way to like do extra or like take a boot camp or like, like for me, I was like, well, I'll still just finish my classes and finish my MPH and like remember all that stuff, but I'm not going to go out of my way to do more.
Okay. So continuing on that, I do have a question of like non-traditional people who from your experience in the ecosystem that you've been in at the population health program at Harvard, who have non-traditional backgrounds. I know sometimes they write in their website like, oh, you don't need to have a bachelor's, and I'm like, people get in without a bachelor's, or like people like me who have like an entrepreneurship program. Is this common, or is it more like academic, do your MPH, come into the PhD program?
So that's really interesting because I remember when they invited us for the open house, their like welcome speech that they had for all of us, they emphasized to us, they're like, you all are here for a reason. And we actually, you know, chose you because you didn't take a traditional path. Like the program in general says that, I mean, they said this to us that they don't like people who go on the straight path where it's just like undergrad, master's, PhD straight through. They like seeing that you took a little time to like go the other way and explore or like get a little lost and then come back and figure out what it is you truly wanted. So I would definitely say that you having an entrepreneur background, if I don't think it's going to hold you back. If anything, it might be seen as a strength and set you apart from all the other applicants that might be just sort of all academic.
You're so positive. I love it. You're the first person that I asked about with regards to age. And so I don't know if you want this to be in the video. Maybe that's a unique
Well, I'll
question that
put this.
I asked somebody else who's done the PhD program at Harvard as well, but he's done a different program in public health. And so he was like, oh, it's not common. Usually they are in their 20s and they're younger. And so based on that, so thank you, first of all, for taking me into, like through that first question. You're the first person that I asked that question. So having your positive response really changed my approach since then to this program. I do have a concern. I don't know, you can tell me, but I do have a concern of being seen as someone who's set in my ways, who knows what she wants like too specifically, whereas maybe a PI or a research lab would want someone who's yes, interested in a research area, but then like open to working with the lab or working with the PI on where to go. Am I wrong? And like, is there a degree where you reach that where like you're too set in your ways, but then you don't want to be too ambiguous. You need to be in somewhere in the middle. Is that a correct assessment?
Yeah, so let me first answer your first respond to the first thing about your age. I don't think that that is too old to begin a PhD at any means. Like I have classmates who started their PhDs in their mid 30s, like early to mid
Sure.
30s. That was, if any, like I think I was on the younger end, to be quite on, like in the middle younger end, and I was 27, 26. Well, I graduated when I was 30, so I'm 31 right now. So there's all the ages out there. So I was a little bit on the younger side, and I would say most of my colleagues and friends, they were all like a couple years older than me, for them, or my age. So I would not worry about that at all. And I think part of that will just be like you'll be in a different phase of life than maybe some of the people who are in their early 20s or mid 20s, and that's totally okay, you
We're
know?
talking about the population health program itself.
Yeah, or just PhD programs in general. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but there are many people who are at different points in their life in the PhD. So that's the other plus of the population health science program is it's like kind of big. There's like a bunch of different departments, and total there are like 30 to 40 students. So of those, you're gonna have like you'll find your like couple of friends that are like more similar to you and like, in the same phase of life, and then that will work out.
Yeah. And then so my question about like being set in my ways and
Yeah,
like
so
knowing,
that question. Yeah.
yeah.
I would definitely say that that is like something you definitely want to strike a good balance of, like showing that you're really passionate about your research topic, but also not to kind of what you were saying, like tunnel vision, because it's not good to, be too like so specifically focused, but it's also not good to just be like, well, I'm interested in everything and I don't know what. So finding that balance between the two. And I don't think you have to change anything about who you are, but I think it's important that when you describe your passion, your experience, and where you're going next in your personal statement, that you sort of show that you have that really focused passion with that sense of like, but I'm open to seeing, where the field goes in the next few years, or, like what kind of collaborations I build and how that may drive my research questions. Like, I think having just showing that you're willing to explore a little too is going to be key. And putting that alongside your already sort of set passions for your current research topic.
Thank you. I actually needed to hear that. Thank you. I'm not going to forget that. I will keep that in mind. And my final question to you, I know you're recording this, but I wanted to ask the population health program specifically, because that's what I'm looking to apply to. And I wanted to ask about the support system, or like what kind of support system did you need, or are people really supportive? How does that work? Because again, I don't know what it's like to be in a program for 5 to 6 years, which is a long journey. I'm sure there is phases where you do need support. And so what do you think a PhD students needs in that program for support? And then what did you find that is available?
Do you mean like, I guess both from the school and the program, or like personally?
The school, the program, definitely.
Yeah. So I would say that the program does provide like a good amount of support. I know that with each year that I was a student, they really sort of listen to students' requests and mental health. Like, for example, like the first year, we all have to take this really rigorous quantitative stats class, which, was sort of always rumored to be the most difficult class you had to take in the program. And it caused a lot of people like it caused me like, more stress than I ever would have thought. Like that was like the one thing that I was constantly worried about my entire first year. And with each year they made edits to the class to make it like less intense. So like by the time like I think last year's students were taking it, it was like pass, or this year's students are now taking it, it's like now pass fail, like everything is open book. It's like, so they're doing things to help. They're listening to students when students are like, hey, this class is like too intense. It's not good for our mental health to be like, learning in this style, please like make adjustments. And they're doing it and they're listening to students. So I think that change is possible. They listen to the students, they care about their mental health. Yeah, I would say that the support is definitely there, but it's not perfect. And I think that no matter where you go for a PhD, I'm learning this in my case too, at every institution that I've been, there are good and bad. There's so much red tape, bureaucracy, administration, logistics, all of that. And it's never going to be perfect no matter where you go. I think part of like being a PhD student in a kind of strange way is like learning how to navigate those waters. And it's very unfair that that's being placed on you, but that is part of the experience. But I would say that, you know, Harvard does have a lot of support, and I think every school has a lot of support and resources. It's just like how well things are implemented and how quickly things change that can kind of be like where the frustration points are. But I felt for the most part very supported. I had a great advisor. So like, for the most part, if you have a good mentor, like if your like main advisor is like, has your back, like that'll be a huge help. And that was definitely the case for me and most of my other um, you know, cohort mates. Like thankfully, like the professors are really great and they know how to advocate for students. So that, is a great thing. And you'll see that everywhere you go. And then just the cohort in general, like is like, my friends, like my classmates, like we all supported each other too. And if anything, that was probably the best part.
Oh God, yeah. That was a big part of the question that I wanted to ask you. Like, are they cutthroat? Are they like competitive? Is it like how did it work? So I'm glad that you're telling me that it was very supportive, the cohort. That's amazing. The
Yeah.
stories on Reddit when you go to PhD, whatever, the PhD subreddit is just a nightmare. And so that's why I asked you this question of like, how do you find out you're not throwing yourself into like this dungeon of like just just competitiveness and whatever, like toxic traits. And so I'm glad that was not the experience that you had in the program.
Well, first of
Uh,
all, Reddit and like Grad Cafe and like all those sort of threads or sub boards or whatever you want to call them, that's where people go to complain. So you're only going to hear the negative stories on like the people like me. I'm creating YouTube videos and doing the opposite, So I would say that, there are, you know, it's not like everybody was my best friend, that's very unrealistic, but people exist on a range, and yes, there were certain people that may have been slightly more competitive than others, but overall was a very kind of collaborative, celebratory, friendly cohort. And that's kind of what I hear across the board as well from my friends in other PhD programs as well. It's because we're all kind of going through the same struggle, and it's like if you're being competitive to the other people, like it only just makes your own experience that much more difficult.
oh my God, no, that's amazing to hear. And then I know we have a few minutes, but just to answer the other part of the question, like what did you need in terms of like personal support in going through the PhD? How do you like cushion yourself?
Yeah. Also, I have more time than just a few minutes, so we can take our time. But yeah, I guess so like you're asking like what kind of personal support I was able to have and that was helpful. I mean, I already talked about the support from my classmates and my friends. So definitely like, my two best friends from a PhD program, they're still my best friends. They were my maids of honor at my wedding. Like, you'll find your sort of people that you gravitate towards. And of course I have other friends from my other friends are watching this video right now. It's just because you were my maid of honor. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I had a good group of friends from my PhD program that I spent a lot of time with, and I'm still in touch with now. And like they were just the people that I was able to go to and just like complain about after like a bad situation or a class or like something frustrating going on with my dissertation, like you'll have those people. And then I am thankful that I had my family to support me, even though they don't understand anything about science and academia. They were just like, it was just great to have them, um, you know, by my side. I had my then boyfriend, now husband, who was supporting me. So yeah, like having your support system, knowing who to go to, and I'm trying to think. Yeah, your advisors, other mentors, like past mentors, unofficial mentors, like really everyone. And another big part too is like the students that you interact with. Like I TA'd a lot of students and got to mentor a lot of students, and they also, and I learned a lot from them as well. So I think just constantly surrounding yourself with people and learning from people around you, because a lot of people say like, oh, the PhD experience is very isolating. And I find that kind of hard because I'm like, I feel like during my PhD is like constantly you're just like with people and learning from people. So I think doing everything you can to surround yourself with people, whether it's from your personal life, your family, your friends, or in your program, teachers, mentors, etc. That will help. And just I have a lot of videos on this, but just a lot, just creating sort of that work-life balance. I feel like that almost is like the most important key is like not letting the PhD program, the research, the work take over everything, like making sure that you still make time to take care of yourself, your mental health, your physical health, exercise, eating well, and putting that first. And then, you know, the other, you don't have to, you know, strive for perfection in your classes and your research. It's more important to, you know, get a good night's sleep and like still go out and have fun with your friends, and then, you know, get to your homework a little bit later. Like that is totally okay. Or, you know, not get 100%, but get like a B on your exam. Like that's totally okay. And being okay with that. And that was something that I, you know, made a priority and still make a priority now, is like, it's okay if my research and my work isn't perfect. I need to make time to spend time with the people I love and do the things I love.
I love it. I love it. So it sounds like you create your own experience, basically. You create that support system around you, and you change that from being lonely and isolated to actually being supported and being around people and to find your support system. I love that. That's very empowering. Different from Reddit. That's very different from what's out there on Reddit. I think these are all my questions, honestly. So thank you. I really wanted to thank you.
No, of course.
Do you regret the experience, or like do you feel like you're grateful you've done it, the PhD program?
Oh, I definitely don't regret it at all. Like this is probably the most, I don't know. I sometimes think back, I'm like, oh, what if I had never like gone back and like taken the GRE and gone to grad school? I'm like, oh my God, I would have been miserable. You know, doing like I was working in corporate recruiting. Like I would not have enjoyed doing that. And even thinking back, like, what if I had just stopped at my master's in public health? And I'm like, you know what? I feel like there would always be this kind of burning thing in the back of my head of like wanting to go and at least try to get a PhD and see what happens there. And you know, I'm learning right now as a postdoc that academia is definitely not, is a definitely very difficult world. And I'm still learning to see if this is the right fit for me. I mean, I mean it is. I mean, I'm doing my best. That's why I'm here making all these videos, encouraging people. But I would definitely say that I don't regret it at all. Like I think it has opened a lot of doors for me. It was a positive experience. I learned so much. Like I truly am proud of sort of what I was able to develop in terms of skills and knowledge and just like research abilities in just 4 years. And yeah, I'm really proud of that. And it's all thanks to, you know, having gone through the PhD program. So I definitely don't regret it at all. I think my next step is just figuring out where I'm going next, which is both challenging, scary, and exciting at the same time.
Right. You know, I remember in your video of your defend when you did your defended your thesis, you actually went and did your workout on the same day. Immediately you went
Yes.
and did your class. And I'm like, that sounds like something I would do. I love that you validated that. Like you can do that. You can go from like defending your thesis, ending a journey, and then just go to whatever you were doing to keep your mental health and just to keep your physical activity going on. So I love that.
Yeah,
One question.
well, it's just, yeah, I mean, a fun fact is like as a fitness instructor, it's actually quite stressful, you know, finding subs for your classes when you have to miss them. So I was like, oh my God, I like don't want to, like, I was like, I knew I had to travel in a couple of weeks and I was already having to cancel a couple of my classes. So I felt bad for like my employer who was like, if I had to miss another one, like they probably wouldn't have been that happy. So I was like, I'll just do it. And like, it's, you know, it just means I can't like finish the whole bottle of champagne. I'll just have one or two glasses. And then the rest can happen after the fitness class. So yeah, all my friends were shocked I did that, but I don't regret it because that's just who I am. I thought it was very, very me to have done that. It's not because I wanted to work out, but I just wanted to carry out that commitment that I had made to teaching that class.
That's badass. That is badass. I think
Thank
one question that I still had is how often is it that you've seen, again, specifically in that program? Because the traditional idea that I had before is PhDs are for academia, and that's it. But I'm seeing more and more programs are actually encouraging people to go into industry, to go into
Oh yeah.
public health, to go into like organization with government. And so in that program, I hope I'm not mistaken in seeing that it's okay that I go in with an intention of like doing this work. I call it like sitting with my problem. What I want to do is like, I want this program to be like time for me to deep dive into the problem. Again, I'm not mistaken there, am I, in thinking that this program actually is okay with their graduates going into non-academic, working with the government, working public health.
Absolutely. I'm actually one of the few people who is staying
Wow.
in academia. I mean, I wouldn't say okay, maybe not one of the few, but like, don't quote me on this, but it's like I think like maybe half of the people stay in academia, and I feel like the other half go off and do industry. That's kind of the feeling I get. That might just be my perceived like, you know, bias of certain things, but um yeah, a lot of my friends are not doing postdocs and they went off and got other jobs and they're not planning to stay in academia. So, um but some of them are too. So, and that's why I'm saying of the friends that I can kind of immediately think of, I feel like it's like a half half or maybe 60% academia, 40% industry, non-academia.
You are a godsend, honestly. I mean, because this is not what I heard before, and I've had some advisors telling me, "Don't do this. You're better off doing whatever else." And so, again, like I said, your very positive email about the age group and like the demographic that I come from, and then your answers right now, like there's a lot of positivity, and I think that the PhD program at Harvard should actually recruit you to be like a better advocate than what they have on their websites.
I
Because
mean, I'm not trying to recruit people to go to Harvard. I'm trying to just encourage people to pursue what they want to do, whether it's a PhD or not. And I just think that no one should ever tell someone that they shouldn't go do something because they don't know you and they like, there's no harm in at least applying and going through the application process and learning about the program and see if it's a good fit for you, like, and you never know, you might get in and go and it might be a great experience. So, yeah, don't let people tell you what you can't do. You totally, like, don't think about sort of like all the different barriers that you're building up. Like, anyone can go for the PhD and including you. So I really encourage you. And I also want to encourage you to apply for more programs than just the Harvard Public Health School. I know that I talk to a lot of people. Of course, I'm sure they find me because they see that I went there. And a lot of people are like, yeah, that's like the one program I want to go to. It's like Harvard or nothing. And I'm not saying that you might necessarily be doing this, but I really do want to encourage you to like apply to a lot of other programs just to maximize your chances because you sound like an amazing PhD candidate. And I really want to maximize your chances of being able to pursue your goal of going for a PhD and whether that's at Harvard or not.
why do I sound like an amazing candidate?
Um, it's like the way that you're asking your questions and um the types of questions you're asking, like you're definitely thinking in the right direction. And yeah, I know I haven't like looked at your CV or anything, but in just chatting with you, like your head's in the right place. And I think that that's to me like more meaningful than, what exactly your CV says about you.
Right. Yeah. Well, my CV doesn't really tell you that I would be going that direction anyway. So you wouldn't really see much there because I have a lot of industry work, but not, I did not think I would get into academia at all. So it was a very surprise to me when it hit me. I'm like, what am I doing? But this
And
could
that's
be something.
okay. And don't think of your lack of academic work on your CV as something that is going to be a negative for you as you apply, because you can always talk about how your industry, your work experience was sort of like research oriented, like you were conducting interviews, you were identifying these gaps in public health, like you can talk about your experience as research experience, and that will like count in terms of like you having that type of like less, like you spinning your industry experience to sounding more like, or not sounding more like, but showcasing the research that you did while you were there.
Yeah, it's very funny because nobody actually told me to actually do this research work. It's actually by tendency. Like it just my brain just made sense to me that we don't have research, we don't have data. And so it's my job then to put that data out there for policy. That's my thinking, right? But then I was like, then I'm doing data and then I call people like from the university. I'm working with professors and I'm like, what am I doing? Like this is academia. Like what am I
Yeah,
doing? And so that's what it
exactly.
made me like, wow, like that's maybe I should do this. That's
Yeah.
when it
And that's why I
uh
think you are a great candidate, because I can tell that you sort of naturally gravitate towards this sort of research oriented approach. And I think you'd really benefit the public health world from going into um, a PhD program.
Oh my goodness, you're fantastic. Thank you for the affirmations. Again, I did not get this from my advisors from before, and so I really appreciate
I'm
that.
sorry about that. That's unfortunate, but just know that you definitely should go for again, nothing to stop you from applying, I guess is what I'm saying at the very least.
Oh my God, I don't want to take more of your time. Just two more, not questions,
Oh,
just two more.
I have plenty of time, don't worry.
So generous. Can I just contact you again if I had any questions or like to check over? I know you're very busy, but like to go through my whatever it is that comes up. I just wanted to get permission from you to reach out to you
Oh
again.
yeah. I think any professor, just cold email them. Like they'll be happy to respond. Some might respond faster and more warmly than others, but they will respond. And that's a great way of just connecting. You don't really need to go through someone. Like, if I have you seen my website where I give like step by step my timeline of applying? Yeah, so I have a template on there. You can just copy that email and use that and reach out to professors. So that's that. And then in terms of reaching back out to me, totally, like anytime. Like if you want to send me another email, schedule another call, like I'm always here to help. Like this is what I'm passionate about, is like helping students who, you know, might not otherwise be able to have the resources to um, get this kind of information. So yeah, I'm
You have
happy.
no idea how much this is important and like changing. Like I'm at a crossroads, and so like your input is like really not to put pressure or anything, but that's amazing. It's very positive that I'm getting that feedback. So it's very very important what you're telling me. So thank you. I just really wanted to thank you for positivity, but also the affirmations and the confirmations of like where my head is going.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I always give people the advice of like apply to multiple programs and make sure they're not all like top Ivy League, like top 10 public health, like, make sure you apply to a range. Just because like as much as I'm very positive and like, uplifting and all of this, I'm also wanting to be realistic and kind of cover our bases to be like, it's kind of a numbers game at the end of the day. And just because Harvard doesn't want you, doesn't mean all these other schools might not want you. So it's important the more schools you apply to, the better chances you will be of getting in somewhere. And no matter where you go, you will get you get a PhD, and it's the same degree, PhD. It's not like when I sign off my email, I say like my PhD was from Harvard, like everyone's gets the same degree at the end of the day. So I really don't want you to feel like, okay, you only should apply to Harvard, which it doesn't sound like you are. So that would be the piece of advice I leave you as you start to think more and more about your application process. That sounds like a great plan. And yeah, keep me updated. Email me if you ever want to hop on another call. I'm happy to do so.
You're fantastic. Honestly, I say this genuinely. You're fantastic. You're one of a kind. I haven't seen many people who do what you're doing, time wise and everything. And so Really appreciate it. Thank you, Jess.
Well, I love doing this. I mean, I love this more than my actual research, honestly. Yeah, maybe I should say that. But I love the mentoring that is a part of being in this world of PhD research, academia, et cetera. So really happy to help. I'm so glad that we got to connect and I got to meet you again. Like you're wonderful. You have the right energy, the right questions, the right approach, and I am looking forward to seeing how your journey unfolds.